Good morning. Yes, I'm trying to start my video so you guys can see me, but it doesn't allow me to do that. So maybe there's a artificial intelligence here that doesn't want to show my face to everyone else here.
No worries. Thanks, Ernst.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Ernst van Wyk, as you've been told. I am the product manager for AVEVA System Platform, formerly at Wonderware. And today we're going to talk a little bit about System Platform 2020. So this is why we are here. System Platform 2020 was released, of course, on the 27th of April. You might have seen some of the news events and some of the emails coming in. I'm sorry, it's of course full of customer value. There's a whole lot of value for you to be found in there. We've got a lot of improvement. There's a couple of themes that we've addressed, and I'll go through some of these themes with you in the presentation. I'll also talk a little bit about Flex subscription and how that works for System Platform. And of course, the one thing that you must remember is this is the best version ever. Of course, we always have to release the best version ever, but this really is the best version ever, and you don't really need to rebuild anything. In 2017, we released InTouch OMI, the Operations Manage interface. It is a fantastic visualization tool that's available. But if you're already running InTouch, you don't have to update OMI. You can just simply upgrade to 2020 and run your InTouch as it is. We, of course, make OMI immediately available for you, so you can play with it in parallel and see what it will give you. And I am very sure you're going to fall in love with it immediately. All right, so let's look a little bit at the history of where we are. If this is the last 6 years or so, we had a couple of version releases over the last couple of years. Those are the 2014 ones, culminating in 2014 R2 Service Pack 1, Patch 1, around about 2017. In the meantime, we were developing 2017, and we ended up with Update 3 Service Pack 1 about third quarter last year. Just about a week or two ago, we released the Patch 1 version of that to roll up all of our little hotfixes and stuff in there. But in parallel, of course, we released the 2020 version, and that's mainly what's going to be my focus here today. Now, when we do a new release, we look at a couple of things that we can make better for our customers. I call them themes in this case. To address certain things that customers might experience with our software. And the first theme we addressed was that of scaling. Now, when we started with System Platform almost 2 decades ago now, we built it right from the start to be a scalable, big solution. Right from the beginning, we were talking about hundreds and thousands of I/O. We were talking about tens of thousands of objects in the galaxy. We were talking about scores of platforms all over the place, and architectural freedom was one of the things that we told everyone we could do very well. The thing is, it worked extremely well. System Platform is extremely popular, and it works very, very well. And that has resulted in today, when we start looking at System Platform solutions, we are talking about millions of I/O and hundreds and thousands of objects and hundreds of platforms. And they're not all just platforms sitting in a site. They are in the cloud, and they're in data centers, and they're virtual and all over the place. So we have to grow with our solution. And one of the things that we've had to make sure is that when you develop in an environment with these large galaxies, we still make that development experience very good. So we improved a couple of things in our development environment, making it faster to start up, making it faster to check in, making it faster to save stuff, etc. And we made some major improvements in the 2020 release in this regard. Another thing that we found is also that multi-galaxy started popping up. It became possible to run multiple galaxies for a single enterprise or even for a single site. And this was a very interesting development because it allowed me to build something in one galaxy and move it over to another galaxy. And I could actually, on that side, change the picture, if it's a picture that I've built, and move it to different galaxies. Now, the problem, of course, is at some point in time, we start wondering where the master of this graphic is and how do we handle that. And we've built some stuff over the years that makes it a little bit easier, that allows you to export protected graphics and things like that. But what we've added in 2020 is the ability to go and store that in our cloud solution, in Integration Studio. So you can build a graphic or an industrial graphic symbol that inside the IDE, and I can go and store that in my Integration Studio cloud folder. And I can use it anywhere else where I have the right credentials, and not just in galaxies. Eduardo might have told you can use this in InTouch. We also make this available in Edge and in other places as well. So you can build a graphic in one place, store it in your cloud folder, and reuse it in multiple other places. So that's just a couple of the things we did for scaling. Let's move on to function. Now, for function, I need to give you a quick history of how our System Platform works. System Platform We build objects that represents real world entities with digital twins, if you want to use that buzzword. An object can have all sorts of attributes and stuff in there, but it can also have visualization. It can have some graphic that's there for the overview of a symbol, or maybe there's a detailed symbol or a faceplate symbol. And we can also now in for instance, 2017, we can add external content. So you can have things like URLs or pictures and stuff also associated with that object. So once I have this object, I can start building my digital twin, my digital representation of the entire asset model. So we take these objects and we build an enterprise, we build a site, we can build an area, we can put some plants in there, we can have multiple pieces of equipment with their own little devices in there, and we can have more equipment, we can have more areas, we can have more sites. So you build this entire asset model out inside System Platform on an application server, and that's my application server asset model. Now to visualize in OMI, I need to build some kind of navigation model. This is the model that I'm going to present to my user. So if he sits in front of me, I'm showing him what he can look at and click on. Now that navigation model is easily built. I can simply drag something from the asset model, put it in my navigation model, and it will bring the entire branch that sits below that in there. Now how OMI works is if I'm in runtime and I select one of these things, so if I click on that valve, for instance, it knows that's the object, and those are pieces of content that's associated with this object. And for OMI, I build a screen and tell that screen I want to see the overview there, the detail there, the external content there, and the faceplate over there. And that makes it very easy. So if the user clicks on something, OMI just figures out what content goes where and just presents it on the screen. So you don't have to go and build multiple screens. You just build the one screen, so put the layout down, and it knows how to build the stuff. Now, I wanted to show you quickly how that looks in real life. It's a short little demonstration video, just to show you, we call it IT-OT conversions. This is a normal HMI screen, but I can also have things like trends and alarms and maps and things associated there. I'm currently on tank 200. If I select tank 300 at the top, you'll see that everything else changes. The trend and all of the content pieces go together, and they all change to now refer to tank 300. Okay. In 2020, we've made things a little bit better. There's something that we call an alias name that changes your object name into a more human readable name. So if you don't like the name TXA50X02, whatever, you can call it flow transmitter, and that is what will show up in the navigation screen. In 2020, we made it so that if you change that to start with an underscore, what's going to happen is in my navigation model, it's going to gray out the ones that have those underscores in front of the alias names, and in runtime, it's actually going to hide them for me. So this allows me to go and build a nice tight navigation model that doesn't really have all the things that I have in my asset model represented in there. We can also, of course, build custom nodes. This allows us to put down static content, so you can build a node, slice the screen up into different pieces, and drag your own graphics and symbols and content onto that. What we've added in 2020 is single asset nodes. It just allows me to go and pull down an asset right from that asset model, and it doesn't bring in the entire branch. So I can pull in the ones that I wanted. I can organize them exactly like I wanted. So I can build my own perspective of the plant. So I can build, for instance, for the pump experts, I can build a navigation node that just has all the pumps in there, and it allows me to really customize that model out perfectly. And of course, in runtime, if someone selects something there, everything still works as it does. It understands which object is referred to. It opens up that layout. It knows what goes where, and it just simply pops up on the screen. So you don't have to go and build a single screen for every one of these objects. All right. Speaking of this, let's look a little bit closer at how we do these layouts. So to build a layout, we create a new layout, and by default, there's one pane on this layout. So I can drop something. I can drop an OMI app on there, for instance, and that will fill up the entire layout screen. Or I can slice this thing into two pieces and put an app on one side and put a symbol on the other side, or multiple slices if I want to do that. So I can build a layout like that. Now, if I put down a symbol in one of these panes, the symbols have custom properties, kind of variables that you can use to touch the symbol and make it perform certain animations. But these things are not visible inside the layout before 2020 anyways. OMI apps, they have public properties, and the developer of the app, so these will be things like the map app or the trend app or the alarm app, they can choose to expose some of these properties. So some of the properties in these OMI apps are exposed in the layout, and you can attach them to different variables and attributes inside the system. Symbols can also have scripts. You might be familiar with that. And if the symbol runs inside OMI app, the script will execute. But of course, when the symbol is not showing, the script doesn't execute. And this presented a problem for us. So in 2020, we decided to allow the scripts to run directly inside the layout as well. So we've added scripting to layouts, which is a really powerful tool. And while we were doing that, we decided to make all public properties visible. You don't have to go and specifically tell the OMI app to expose certain properties. All public properties that is available will just be exposed, and they can be used by the user. And in the same time, we also added custom properties, made them all visible in layouts, and you can script them directly, and you can dynamically assign them to different attributes inside the Galaxy if you want to do that. While we were there, we thought apps also have methods, so why not expose all the methods? And we did that. We exposed all the methods. You can call those methods directly from scripting, and in fact, you can also subscribe to events. So if someone clicks on something inside an OMI app, you can subscribe to that event and run additional scripting if you want to do something like that. Now, existing apps, things like the Trend app and the Alarm app, we have made all of the public properties available. All of the events, all the methods are now exposed. If you've used these since in 2017, you would have known that there's some things that you couldn't do that you can do now in 2020. You can call those methods events, you can set up queries, you can do exactly what you want to do with those apps. And that really exponentially increases the capability of AVEVA OMI in total. Okay, one last bit of function, which is a little bit away from OMI, but I also like this one. You might have seen in 2017, if you have an analog signal somewhere, you can specify in system platform, you can specify limits like a high alarm limit or a low alarm limit. When this analog goes into alarm and you trend it anywhere on the screen, it automatically puts a little halo over the analog. So you can see a little halo on when that signal is in alarm. The problem is that sometimes you don't do your alarm detection inside system platforms. You might be doing it somewhere else. There might be a Boolean or a discrete value somewhere else in your PLC or on app server that detects this alarm. But now, what happens to your halos, because these two things are no longer connected? So what we've added in 2020 is the ability to associate a specific alarm to a specific analog. And when you plot that analog in any of the trend functions, it's going to put a little halo over it whenever it's in alarm. It doesn't matter which alarm you've selected or it's in. Okay, let's look a little bit about apps. Now, we spoke a little bit about content, map apps and those kinds of things. We deliver a whole lot of apps with the software that allows us to go and add additional content onto our layouts. We do that through our app store, which is called the Digital Exchange, and you can access it directly from the IDE if you want to see what's in there. There's a couple of apps in there, and you can, some of them ship with the product, but there's also some apps on the Digital Exchange, and we're every day adding more apps in there. Now, during the last year, we've added a couple of apps, and we're still busy with some of them. The first one we've added in there is a video app. So there's you just pointed to a video, associate that with an object, and when that object comes on the screen, if there's a video content available, it will just play the video for you. We've also added, in the process of adding something called a PLC logic viewer or PLC viewer. What this allows me to do is I can supply this with this app with a PLC program, and it will understand where in the model I am. So if I click on a specific pump, it's going to show me the live execution of that pump in context inside the PLC. So if I have some line that doesn't want to start up and it's interlocked or whatever, I can simply open up this logic viewer, select the line, and it will go find that line for me in the PLC code and show me live what's going on in there, and I can find out why it's interlocked. So it's a very, very cool maintenance tool or fault finding tool. We've also made some significant changes to the map app, making sure that we can connect to things like secured servers without storing passwords and clear text and all sorts of things like that. And we've also expanded that to other apps. So we've got something called a credential store that you can use in other apps now that allows you to go and store a password. So if you have a connection, you want to go to a SQL server, instead of having that password in clear text, you can store it in the credential store now, and no one can ever read that password. It's not stored somewhere in clear text. You have to have the right credentials to retrieve it. We also made some improvements to the content presenter. Now, that's a nice little app. This allows me to go and specify certain content types and search parameters, and it will go and find me all the content, and it will just space all the content in a list, horizontal or on a table, or whatever format you wanted to show. A very neat little tool. I wanted to show you some of the apps. This is our spreadsheet app. There's a Word app. There's a PDF app running top right. I've got a picture viewer. There's the video app. We also have a 3D app that allows us to connect to the AVEVA 3D stuff. So in context, I can actually walk through the 3D environment. That's the PLC app, which allows me to go and see what's going on in the PLC, and it shows me the live execution of values in the PLC. So this is just a couple of the apps that I've put on the screen there, so we can see what's going on. There's another app that's coming. It's called Artificial Intelligence app, and this is a pretty cool app as well. If you store your information in our online historian, we will analyze that information for you, and we will find out if there's any anomalies, things that are going on that you need to know about, and it will notify you in this list and tell you that we can see that this temperature is higher than usual, things like that. And you can also rate these things and say, well, this is useless information, or this was really good information, and it will help you like that. Let's talk a little bit more about content. I showed you some of the out-of-the-box content and how we use them, but you can also build your own content. To do that, you need Visual Studio. We have an SDK. You can put any controls in there. You can put some .NET WPF or .NET WinForms controls on there, and you can add some functionality. Now, typically in an app, that functionality is the capability to understand what is the current asset and to change the controls to show you what's happening with a specific asset at any point in time. Once I'm done with that, I can pull that into the IDE. It gives me something called an OMI app, and I can stick that directly onto a layout. And of course, in runtime, this app will show up. And if I change the context, the app will change the context with me. But sometimes I don't need the context. Sometimes I don't need this additional functionality. Sometimes I just want to have a grid control, and I want to just script to that grid control. So what we've done for 2020 is to say, yes, you don't need Visual Studio if you just want to use the control. We'll allow you to straight import that control and make it available directly in the IDE for placement in the layout. And you can script to it, and you can do everything else to it. So when I showed you the layout scripting earlier, it is not just for OMI apps, but any control that you want to put on there, you can stick it on there, and that control will be scriptable and available, and you can use it directly inside OMI. And this, of course, makes the world's .NET controls available for AVEVA. Just to show you a little bit how that works, over here I've got a grid control that's on the bottom. On the left-hand side, I have just a browser control. And what I've done there is actually interesting. I stuck one of, and you would have seen with Eduardo's session earlier on, I stuck one of the InTouch web clients in there. So what you can do there is you can create a tab control of all your InTouch web clients and stick them inside OMI. And if you double click it, you can open it big screen or just sit inside a pane. So you can monitor multiple InTouch web clients sitting in your single OMI, which is a pretty neat feature. We've also expanded some of our horizons a little bit. And what I mean with that is, when we work with system platform, when we connect to things in the outside world, typically we use something called OI servers. Those can connect to PLCs and all sorts of devices. And that's how we get our live data into system platform. With 2020, we've also added AVEVA telemetry server. This allows us to do things like DNP3, IEC 6870, and Modbus telemetry communications. We've also added an MQTT OI server. If you're familiar with MQTT, this really opens up the industrial Internet of Things, the IIoT environment for us, because it allows us to connect to an MQTT broker that's sitting in a cloud somewhere. So if you have devices in the field somewhere that can speak MQTT, you can send it through the broker and we can pick it up and communicate to them. Now, that's how we get information, but sometimes we have other systems that want information from us. So one of the things we added for System Platform 2020 is the ability to supply information using OPC UA. So Application Server is also now an OPC UA server from 2020. In terms of diagnostics, we've made some improvements as well. System Platform is an extremely powerful and customizable tool. This means that if you really want to, you can actually configure yourself into trouble. And what we've done with 2020 is we've started to identify places where a customer can get himself in trouble, for instance, with things like encryption and certificates. And what we'll do is we'll prevent you from configuring something that will break your system. So we've tried to identify these places, and this is an ongoing initiative. We're going to keep on doing this over time and improve the way that we do preemptive diagnostics for you. Of course, sometimes things do go wrong, and if they do go wrong, what we've done also is we are looking at all of our error messages and stuff that we give you actionable information when an error message pops up. So we are also doing that on an ongoing basis. Lastly, cybersecurity, and it always feels like it's the thing we talk about lastly, but it is really, really important. We've done a couple of things. I'm not going to go into the detail of them. I do want to say that cybersecurity is an extremely important part of our work. We really do value good cybersecurity, and we spend a lot of resources on it. We cannot often tell you all the details about it because it is kind of something that we don't want the world to know. How do we protect our software? But just be sure that we have, and I can say this, I think, the most secure software in this environment in the world. There's also a couple of other surprises in there. If you're familiar with the software, we've got things like responsive layouts and hide content and a couple of other things in there. I didn't want to show you a full version of the software running. It's actually part of a 4-screen demo. On the left-hand side, there's a slide out there that shows me the navigation. This is where we can build our navigation view of things. You don't have to use that. We also expose the navigation on the top bar there. If you select Northeast, everything on the screen changes, camera changes, map changes, and all of these things are interactive. So if you click something on a map, it also changes. So I've clicked West Virginia, and now all the camera, the trend, everything changes to West Virginia. And it does that on all the screens. This is a traditional HMI screen. So you can still run your traditional InTouch type HMI right in here. You can slide up and down. I've now moved it over to Virginia. You can see on the left-hand screen, everything is now changed to Virginia. The training center recognizes where Virginia is, southeast, so it gives me that video, web content, trend, documentation, all changes to show me what's happening in Virginia. On the right-hand side, I've got some .NET controls, and I've linked all of these things together. There's a spreadsheet app. There's also a data grid, a SQL data grid, and I've made it interactive. So if you select something in one, it will change all of the trends and stuff in the other apps as well. So it allows me to go and make everything one single context-aware visualization. All right. I quickly want to run through what Flex is. Flex is our subscription offer. Flex allows a customer to purchase credits and then only use those credits for the things that he wants to use it on. So if you use something, you spend credits, and if you don't want to use it anymore, you don't spend the credits anymore. So it's like a pay-as-you-use kind of environment. Two concepts that we really wanted to do in Flex is we wanted to give you unlimited, and we wanted to make it very easy for you to use. So in System Platform, we made it extremely easy. You have to choose how many application server nodes you want. I don't care if they are real or if they are virtual. All you need to tell me is how many nodes do you want. You can run as many I/O on those nodes as your hardware will handle. We are not going to limit you on that. Then second question is how many supervisory servers do you need? Again, I don't care if they're virtual or real. You can run as many remote desktop sessions on there as your hardware will allow. We're not going to limit you on that one. All right. So the limits are the hardware. So of course, if you can find hardware that will run 100,000 remote desktop sessions, you can get away with a single license in there. But that's the only thing that you need to consider. There is the question of what happens in distributed environments. If I have multiple small application servers, do I have to spend my credits on these big servers? So we allowed you a choice to say, do you want to run unlimited engines or do you want to run a single engine on that platform? And then lastly, there's the question of what about a standalone client if I want to have a standalone client? So there's also a third question in there that you need to answer. But that's all you need to decide if you want to run Flex. Get your credits. How many application server nodes do you want? Do you want single or unlimited engines? How many supervisory servers do you want? And how many standalone clients do you want? All right, and that's the Flex offering. Now, I just wanted to wrap up from here. Most important point of everything that came out of my mouth now was AVEVA System Platform and OMI 2020 was released on the 27th of April, right? It's available now. It's the best version ever, with or without OMI. I happen to think that with OMI, it's much better. So please, if you can, find it download it from the GCS website, from our global customer support website, and contact your account manager, get a demo license, and experience this thing for yourself, and you will definitely like working with it. And that, I think, is everything I have time for. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Ernst. Appreciate it. Let's see. I think Maureen was going to pass the host role over to me. Looks like we've got some questions coming in.
1 second there, Mike.
Yeah, sure thing. So Ernst, we've got a question in the Q&A box here, and please everyone go ahead and continue to submit those questions, and we'll answer them as we receive them. How is OMI different from HMI is the first question we have.
That is a really great question, and it has multiple answers depending on what angle you want to take on it. The short answer is OMI is a native visualization tool for System Platform. It works with System Platform. It works only with System Platform at this point in time. InTouch is an HMI that can run on anything. It can run on a PLC. It can run on some other piece of equipment. It can run standalone. It happens to also be able to run on System Platform. But if you build something in InTouch HMI on System Platform, you wanted to really take advantage of things like the model and the fact that you can have containment and that you have templates and all these things. In InTouch, you would have had to go and script all these things. You've had to go and figure out, this object is part of the $pump templates and it now has this graphics. It becomes a lot of scripting that you had to get to get it to work. OMI just natively understands that. It natively understands how to work with the structure, how to work with templates. It also has built-in navigation. It takes that because you already built it in System Platform. In InTouch, you would have had to go and rebuild that navigation. You don't have to do that in OMI. So and those are two of the main things that's there. Of course, there's things like content. OMI is designed to be a content presenter that presents content to you from other places. In InTouch, you could probably do the same thing, but you'd have to do a lot of scripting to do that. It's not designed really to bring in content from your Maxima or your SAP or your map apps or all these things. In OMI, you simply associate a piece of content, and if the app exists, it will come up on the screen. And I'm going to leave it there because there's a whole lot of other things that we can go to, but I don't want to spend the next 10 minutes on that.